Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Township of North Frontenac's council meeting for Friday, March the 20th. Please be advised, North Frontenac council meetings are recorded. By attending a public meeting of council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Members of council, staff, delegates, and attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behavior or comments. We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place of the first peoples and their ancestors who were entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the Township of North Frontenac is committed to working with indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. Council, we have an agenda.
Moved by Councilor Hermer, second by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council approves the agenda dated March 20th, 2026 as circulated.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. We have an agenda. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none. We have a business profile from Quinte Ultramar.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, second by Councilor Hermer. Be it resolved that council receives for information the business profile of Ultramar provided by the Economic Development Task Force.
Are there any comments? Yep. Councilor English.
Want to thank Paul Field. I'm glad to see these whenever we see them. Kind of keeps me up to date on new things that are happening that I would not otherwise know about.
Thank you, Todd. Anybody else? In favor? Carried. Presentations. Michael Pion from Camium, annual report on waste disposal sites. Michael, are you with us?
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. I'm here to provide you an update on the annual monitoring work we did for the Township's waste disposal site over the past year for the 2025 monitoring period. We could scroll down to the next slide, please, or should I share my screen? What makes more sense?
Whatever's easier for you. If you want to share your screen, then we can do that as well.
Okay, I'll do that just for ease there. Give me 1 second.
Give me 1 second.
Okay, so I should be good to share mine now.
I may have to keep sharing the screen. They changed settings here. Yeah, I'll just have to keep sharing the screen.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
You can just tell me to switch slides.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank
Okay, one. Okay. All right. So I'll just go a bit over what we'll be discussing today. We're going to discuss the results of the annual monitoring. I'll provide you an update on the landfill capacities, where we're at with the township. Any details of any of the site inspections completed this year. I'll discuss the results of the reporting programs that we've done, a summary of operational information, as well as any recommended changes to the monitoring or operations of these sites, as well as any requirements that are required to be completed to meet the ministry guidelines there. You can go to the next slide, please. The first township operated site there is the 506 waste disposal site. It's a transfer station and a landfill, active landfill Camion's role there is to do the groundwater or surface water monitoring. We did the capacity surveys as well as the annual monitoring reporting. This past summer, the operating hours were revised to provide better service for the residents. So instead of the former hours from 2024 in the summer being 12 to 5, they are now 9 to 2. The results of our environmental sampling, so our groundwater surface water sampling, showed that there was no adverse impacts to the receiving groundwater or surface water receptors surrounding the sites. If you don't mind going to the next slide, there'll be a map, and then I can just get through the recommendations there and some of the other comments that we've received. At the site, one of our recommendations, as you can see on the map there, there's a wetland to the west there, and then there's a surface water course to the south. It's very important that there's mitigation measures in place to protect these receptors. So at the site, there's a sediment control fencing and as well as strawberry fencing to the south there, just north of that blue squiggle. There's that yellow line there. It's important that that fence be maintained and inspected regularly to make sure that there's no sedimentation or runoff to the creek. So that was one of our recommendations there. Another one from our most recent site visits, we noticed that there should be a bit more cover material on top of the waste around monitoring wells MW3R. So that's just near the straw bale fencing there. That just protects the surface water creek from some runoff as well as maybe some moving debris. And then we received ministry comments from the Ministry of Environment this past year from the surface water reviewer, noting that they support the continued usage of that fencing and the importance of it. And then to the west of the site in the wetland, there's a little triangle there. That's so that'd be on the left hand of the screen there. The ministry just asked if we could relocate that surface water station to be in a location that gets more quantities of water. So Camion will look into that in the upcoming year to see if it's feasible. And then the site was operated in compliance with the ECA in 2025. We can go to the next slide, please. So next is the RDOC. The RDOC waste disposal site, which was temporarily closed in 2013. It has about 20,000 cubic meters of capacity left at the time of closure. At the historical filling rates at this time, that this was equivalent of 38 years of capacity. The township has proposed to reopen the site on a limited time basis. So what that means is basically they want to use the site for their transfer stations for the AMPA, for the cloying sites, and take the garbage that's accepted there, bring it to that site, not have it open to the public, landfill the materials, and just cover it. So Camion, based on this, Camion completed a design and operation plans for this site, provided to the townships with the annual monitoring reports this year for review and approval. Once the township gives us the approval for this document, what we're going to do, we had a meeting with the Ministry of the Environment last year, asking them if they wanted to see the design and operation plan because it's a reopening of the site. If they wanted to see it before we submit the ECA application, they did request that that's a better process. So they're going to review our design and operation plan first before we do any formal applications, just to see, just to get some updated comments on the operations of the site. As of right now, so to reopen the site, ultimately we need a director approval. So we need a revised ECA, and we're going to wait on township approval to submit these applications down the road once we have the ministry comments. Currently, as the site sits, it's closed, as it's temporarily closed. We only have to report there every 3 years. So the next report we're going to be preparing is for the 2025 to 2028 monitoring years. So the next one will be due in 2029. You can go to the next slide, please. Just want to point out here that in terms of that 20,000 cubic meters of space that is available at the site, we're looking at capacity to the north and to the south, as well as in the general middle of the site. There's capacity horizontally and vertically at the site. So we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So the next site is Cashwackamak. This is a transfer station active landfill. Camium's there to do the monitoring, surveying, and reporting. As a historical context at the site, a couple of years ago, we noticed that there were some groundwater compliance issues at the site. So we prepared an action plan with contingency measures that should be implemented. We received confirmation from the Ministry of the Environment support for this contingency plan in 2025. So we're proposing that because there's specific windows we need to meet, we're proposing that it should be implemented in 2026, pending township approval. I'll get into the work and an understanding of this on the next slide, but in terms of the site as a whole, there was no landfill gas measurements of concern. The site's operated well. It's important that the township continue to use litter control fencing around the active area to keep the aesthetics well maintained. We did receive approval back in 2023 for some reductions to the monitoring program, but they won't be implemented until we have an understanding of the conceptual site model of the site. So, and because we need a revised ECA, it makes sense to do all the changes at the same time. So we'll get everything squared away once we understand based on the results of our action plan, which if you go to the next slide, please. Here's just right here is just an overview of the site layout. It's a pretty basic facility here. We got the recycling and just the active landfill on the site there. Next slide. You can actually go to one more, please. Thank you. So to get an understanding of what is going on at the site here, we have groundwater compliance issues to the east and to the south. So to the east of the site, you could see that there's the two monitoring wells there, MW 101S and 101D. They're near that red property boundary there on the right-hand side of the screen. So with those monitoring wells, we have paired wells there for monitoring shallow water quality and the deep bedrock quality. In the shallow well there, we're thinking that we're still seeing some potential minor impacts, although we think that in the shallow well there, we're seeing it from natural site conditions within that area, because we're only seeing manganese, which is common of a wetlandy kind of rich organic environment, versus in the deep well there, we're seeing higher suggestions of leachate concentration. So we're still seeing some compliance issues in those wells. But the thing with installing new monitoring wells is it does take a bit of time for water quality to stabilize. So until we have a sufficient data set to the east, we just need to keep monitoring and see what the water quality suggests over the next year or two. Because right now we've only sampled the wells 4 times. It usually requires about 6 to 10 data points just to get an understanding, especially with the invasiveness of drilling. It can influence the water chemistry in an area. Now to the south of the site, you can see there off near the bottom of the screen, south of that red boundary there, we have monitoring wells 102 and 103. Those wells, we had issues, groundwater compliance issues at 107S and 107D. Those 2 wells there, we're showing signs of site-related impact. So we installed the 2 other wells on the adjacent Crown land in 2024. The water quality results there were good. They weren't showing any impacts leaving the site. Given that the wells are generally pretty close to the site, it is possible that the groundwater within the area in the area around those 107S wells is upwelling the surface. So what Cambion is proposing to do, and we've received ministry support on this, is we're going to do a surface water investigation of this area. So we're going to look at the health of the vegetation. We're going to look for, we're going to monitor the water levels in that area, as well as potentially install 3 shallow dry points and do some temperature profiling in this area to get a better understanding of what is going on at the site, seeing if the groundwater is upwelling. Once we understand the conceptual site model, so where our potential impacts may be going, then we can revise the ECA in the monitoring program. So we have another year in 2026 to assess, get an understanding of the site conditions, and implement that contingency plan to see what's going on there. You may go to the next slide, please. So the Mississippi waste disposal site, transfer station and a landfill. It's came in there to do the monitoring, capacity surveys, and reporting. There was no adverse impacts observed in the groundwater or surface water. The site complied with its required standards. Landfill gas concentrations remain low. When Cambion was there, we note that the township does use the litter control fencing around the active area, so we do recommend to continue using that and doing the cleanups as need be. We have proposed changes to the monitoring program here, which requires approval, but we don't think that VOC analysis, so volatile analysis in the groundwater sampling program, is warranted based on the results we're seeing. So hopefully we can get that approval and save the township some money in that aspect. Not much really going on at the site. It operated in compliance in 2024. You can go to the next slide, please. So if you look, this is just the site layout. It's a great site. You have a lot of diversion options for the residents as well. It's perfect because you have a great source of cover material readily and available, at all times to cover the waste. And then you can see here, all the groundwater is flowing to Shiner Creek, and we're not seeing any impacts there. You can go to the next slide. So the Plevna waste disposal site, yeah, it's an active landfill and transfer station. It's a quite popular destination for the residents of the township. Came is there to do monitoring, surveying, and reporting. In 2024, just as a refresher, we did get a revised ECA to allow flexibility in operations, so process the construction and demolition materials that are on the site, and then to be used as cover material, which is a great way to conserve landfill space. Instead of using soil, you're using some of that construction demolition waste mixed with soil to conserve the space that way. And then there is the flexibility at the site. We received approval for the implementation of a reuse center should the township wish to follow with this option. There was observations from the environmental monitoring reported that there was no off-site impacts to the groundwater or surface water receptors. The landfill gas concentrations at the site remained low. The Ministry of the Environment was there in July 2025 to do a site inspection. They noted numerous deficiencies pertaining to basically to the cleanliness of the site. It's a very busy site. What the township and Cambion worked together. We provided some responses to the ministry addressing how we can maintain the site a bit better, including adding more cover material as needed, keeping the active landfill area small, and then continue to monitor for if there's coyotes or any activity at the site to remedy those as quickly as possible. They also noted that the site was not well screened from Buckshot Lake Road. As part of the standard regulations there, it's important that sites are not visible from the road. The township did a great job installing some privacy fencing along this. I'll show that on the next slide. It looks awesome. And the ministry was satisfied with our responses provided, as well as the work that the township has completed. So good work all around. There was a fire at the site in the construction in the chip materials, construction demolition waste chip materials in October 2025. The township completed the appropriate response measures. They monitored the fire. They made sure that it was completely out. There was no evidence of runoff leaving the site. And the notifications required were completed as per the ECA. The Spills Action Center, as well as the district manager, were notified. So again, good effort around to get that resolved. And of note that the township continue with doing their inspections and making sure that cleanups are completed in the peripheral areas as required of the sites. The transfer stations at all the township sites are looking great. It's good to have a chance to go visit the peripheral areas whenever staffing's permitted. They are more difficult areas to assess, especially with how busy the sites are. So the site, following the inspections and the responses, the site was operating in compliance with the ECA. So we're good to go there. Yeah, so if you can look at the bottom right picture there, you can see the privacy fencing that the township installed there along the road. It's looking pretty good, and the ministry was happy with the effort completed. You may go to the next slide. So the Cloyne waste disposal site, it's a active transfer station with a closed landfill. The waste from this landfill is hauled to various sites across the township. It's shared with the residents of Atherton Highlands, so there's separate waste disposal bins for each township. KMM is there to do the monitoring reporting at the site. There was no adverse impacts expected off-site. In the previous last year, we received support comments from the ministry, which helps streamline the reporting and helps with the compliance of the site. So we received support for the discontinuation of the groundwater trigger mechanism. So at the site, groundwater is upwelling to the surface water environment to the north, and there's a creek there as well. And it's always important that when you're assessing compliance, that you're focusing on where impacts are going, not looking at everything as a whole. It's very important to focus on where things are going. So they agreed with the discontinuation of the groundwater trigger mechanism and with a focus on the surface water trigger mechanism, which received some modifications so that it could be assessed more efficiently and effectively. And with the additional approvals, we received approval for the removal of 3 monitoring wells from the monitoring program. So another way for cost savings for the township there, as well as streamline monitoring and reporting. So it's a pretty good win for the site. Similar with previous years, that tier 1 of the surface water trigger mechanism was activated. We have contingency measures in place, which involves we do toxicity sampling. The first time we did it was 2023. We had no adverse impacts reported. Toxicity sampling is a very cheap way to determine if there's going to be adverse impacts to a surface water environment. So we propose to do this every 5 years to ensure that impacts are not occurring, as well as under the caveat that if the surface water quality results suggest otherwise, we'll complete additional toxicity sampling events. But the next one is scheduled for 2028. And then in addition to these comments we received from the ministry, we've been in ongoing discussions for a very long time with the ministry about how to deal with the flooding north of the landfill there. And there's always been a lot of back and forth about how to address the flooding at the site, especially when you're dealing with where it could go off, where the flood waters could go off site. You don't want to flood the road or anything. And the ministry finally agreed that we can passive floodplain management of this flooded area is an appropriate way to manage the water. So they just don't want to see deterioration. So they don't want to see it getting significantly deeper. But if we stay status quo with what we've been doing, we should be okay pending, significant rainfalls. So as noted, landfill gas concentrations have remained low at the sites. The site was operated in compliance with the ECA. There are some requirements in the ECA about decommissioning monitoring wells at the site should they no longer be a part of the program. So there are 3 wells. So that's a little caveat in the compliance that will need to be addressed in the future. If you can go to the next slide, please. If you could see here, the 3 wells that we received to receive approval is DP2 and 3, which is in the blue area on the left side of the screen. Those 2 wells are within the flooded area, so accessibility is challenging. I've been going to this site for 11 years now, and they've always been inaccessible. It doesn't make sense to dewater the whole area, to decommission wells. So we'll continue to monitor and decommission those wells at a suitable time. They are shallow, so Camium can do that in-house, so we can monitor and complete the work, when conditions permit. Dry point 4 is adjacent the stream, so there is definitely available options that we can decommission that well when conditions permit. It does flood in that area, but we should be able to decommission that in 2026 if permission is obtained from the township there. And then you can see here, the flooded area in the beaver dam on the left-hand screen. That's the area that we just need to monitor the water levels over time to make sure they're not getting worse. You may go to the next slide. So the AMPA waste disposal site is a transfer station closed landfill where they're doing the monitoring and reporting work every 3 years. So the last time we were there was in 2023. We'll be there this coming year to do the monitoring as well as the reporting. There was no adverse impacts. Triggers weren't activated the last time we were there in 2023, and the site was operated in compliance with the ECA. You can go to the next slide, please. So this is just the site layout of AMPA there. You can see that it's a pretty basic setup. You got the recycling bins, the waste, the essentials for the residents that are popping by. You can go to the next slide. So the Gull Lake Waste Disposal Site was closed in 1991. We monitor there once a year and we report every 2 years. So this was a reporting year for us. Next year will be, like this year, 2026, we'll be there to collect the water samples and then report the following year. There is a weak leachate signature just down gradient of the waste mound in the direction of groundwater flow. But the impacts are expected to attenuate prior to reaching the Big Gull Lake. The site has been operated in compliance with the ECA, and the monitoring program is recommended to continue at the site. You can go to the next slide, please. And you can go to the next slide again, please. So the Fernley Waste Disposal Site, this is another win for the township here. We proposed a discontinuation of the monitoring program, and a couple of years ago, we received the formal approval in 2025 to discontinue the annual monitoring, the annual reporting program at the site. That's fantastic news. The only thing that remains as a part of this work program is just to continue to do annual site inspections to ensure that there are no visual impacts to the surface water receptor there, known as surface water 2, which if you go to the next slide, please. You can see here surface water 2 is to the north of the waste mound in the top right corner of this top right corner of the screen. Basically, Camium will go there once a year, walk the waste mound to see if there's any potential impacts occurring, any exposed waste, any erosion. But this is a big win, no longer doing analytical laboratory work and no longer having to report, just doing just doing the site inspection. So that's a good win. May go to the next slide. So overall, the township has a good training regimen for all staff operating the site. It is evident by the education that's provided to the residents. We'll get into that when we're looking at the diversion and the materials being brought to the site. There's another training event coming up in the next month or so. So we do this annually with the township. The aesthetics, the transfer stations and the closed sites were very well maintained. There was a fire at the Plevna waste disposal site. It was managed without any off-site impacts and appropriately reported to the Spills Action Center as well as the district manager. So kudos to everyone involved. Nobody wants to encounter a fire at work. So I'm sure it was a very stressful time, but it was managed appropriately. The site inspection that was completed at Plevna identified various areas for improvement for site operations, mainly pertaining to cleanliness. So again, we provided them administrative responses that they were satisfied with, and the township will implement these going forward. There's a contingency plan pending township approval to be completed at Kashwakimak, so we can address the groundwater compliance. The groundwater compliance requirements in 2026. There's the big win for the Fernley monitoring reporting program, which has been discontinued and now is site inspections. We have provided the township with a draft design and operation plan for RDOC for township review and approval. And then from here, this will go to the groundwater and surface water reviewers at the Ministry of the Environment. And with their comments, we can update our design and operations plan. And we can go into the process of doing the EC application once, we have received a township approval to submit that. You can go to the next slide. So here's the update on the landfill capacity. So I'll start out by saying that the township is quite rich in a sense of with landfill capacity. So generally for a planning period for waste disposal activities, a good planning period is 25 years. And as you can see, as the township as a whole, there's about 64 years of capacity available should the RDOC site reopen. If the RDOC site does not reopen, we're looking at about 52 years. That's just because the waste that's going from Pion and Ampa will be going to other sites, which will expedite your landfilling rates. So as you can see here, this speaks volumes to the training, the landfill attendants, and the work that they're doing as residents bring waste to the site and the directions they're giving to the residents. Because as you can see here, we have seen more increase in site life as the site, which from my conversation with the township is that the sites are busy. So you would think that the landfill life should be going down, but it all depends on the composition of the materials being brought to the site. So if the sites are busier, but the residents are buying into the diversion practices that are being offered, there's a lot less waste going into the ground. So this speaks volumes to the options available to the residents, as well as the frontline workers, the ones that are telling people where to divert materials, or by now, because when we look at the amount of waste brought to the site over the past 10 years since Cambium has taken over completing these topographic surveys, we have seen that a general increase in site life in the last 5 years versus the first 5 years of survey. So you can see that all these programs that are being implemented, all this education provided to the residents are paying off. If you go to the next slide, please, you can actually see this trend from year to year as a part of the township-wide capacity. So in 2020, we had about 49. This all includes the potential to reopen RDOC. But you can see from 2020 to 2025, we have seen incremental increases in site life. which there's many reasons for that. Like I said, I mean, the education with the residents, the diversion rates. Another thing that's involved in this is when Camium comes to complete these capacity surveys, we're surveying the entire transfer station, landfilling area. So generally in the transfer station areas, there will be areas where the township has historically placed landfill waste. So, and peripheral areas, we're doing a comprehensive survey each time we come to the site. So when we're doing these surveys, we can account for settling of the waste and the compaction and cars driving over it, and then the sheep's foot compactor that the township utilizes at various sites and the heavy equipment there. So the waste keeps getting squished and squished and squished. That could also be what's playing into a factor. We're likely seeing both. We're seeing the great compaction rates. We're seeing great diversion rates, which has generally keeps increasing the township site lives. So good work on everyone involved there. So as I mentioned previously, the townships between all the sites of RDOC were to reopen. There's about 64 years of site life remaining, or I believe it was 52 should RDOC not, the township choose not to reopen the RDOC site. You can go to the next slide, please. So in terms of speaking of the amount of materials diverted, like I said, the township has a lot of options, a lot of streams for the residents to partake in, whether it's the blue box recyclables, hazardous waste that's available there, scrap metal, tires, electronics. In total last year, not all the sites accept all the materials, but the residents know where to go to dispose of whatever needs to be. It's shown by the tonnages reported here. So last year there was about 290 tons of materials diverted from all the sites. So that's a great resident participation for the township. At this point, if you can go to the next slide, if anyone has any questions, I can provide you some answers.
Thank you, Michael. Does anyone have any questions from council? Councilor Inglis?
Darwin, it looks like the only transfer station moving landfill is Quinte. And I see in the report you're proposing to start sending that to RDOC in the future. Is that the only reason to open RDOC, is to receive Quinte stuff?
Mr. Mayor, through you, well, AMPA and Quinte transfer stations, the waste from there, garbage from there goes currently to either 506 or Plevna. So the proposal is that would go to RDOC, and then larger loads of construction demolition waste too would go to RDOC, and then we'd be set up to cover frequently, compact and cover frequently. And it would reduce the demand on the other two sites.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Hoodle?
Thank you, Michael, for the presentation. I'm glad to see that everything's running following our ECA protocols. Just a quick question. The ministry came on July this year or last year. Was that an unannounced inspection, or was that a yearly inspection that we knew about?
Darwin, can you? I think it was
I'll go ahead. It was for the most part unannounced, and they don't do all the sites all the years, but they do come in and inspect them selectively. And then because of the fire and reporting to the Spills Action Center, then there was follow-up that was anticipated as a result of that. So.
Okay, thanks. And then I guess, Adam, I'm sure you don't know the answer, but we don't know the cause of that fire in the waste site, do we?
No, I don't know. Fire chief has any thoughts on it? I know that we've been grinding that material now for a few years, and it does heat and generate heat internally. You'll see it in the winter, with the steam coming off it, but I don't know if that would be the cause or something disposed of at the site.
Anyone else? Councilor Haig?
Thank you, Michael, for the report. Just a quick question about the well that is being decommissioned or proposed to be decommissioned. Are you proposing another well in its place, replacement, or it's just decommissioned and that's it?
For the Cloyne site there, yes, that those wells received approval to be removed from the monitoring program, and as a part of that, the ministry has requested that they also be decommissioned. So there's going to be no replacements there for that site. We're strictly in that area going to be focusing on collecting waters from that large ponded water and stream there. That's our area of focus.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. Tara?
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information the presentation from Mike Pion, project manager with Quinte, providing an annual update of the township's waste disposal sites, and thanks him for his time spent today.
Final comments? In favor? Resolution's carried. Thank you, Michael. We appreciate having you here.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Public Works Manager, Darwin, you have a presentation? The annual waste management statistics in your end?
I don't have a presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be resolved that council receives for information the Public Works Manager's administrative report entitled 2025 Annual Waste Management Recycling Statistics and Year End.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. We have no delegations. Adoption of the minutes.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be resolved that council adopts the minutes as circulated of the council meeting held February 27th, 2026.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item 9, business arising out of the minutes, fees and charges bylaw, Schedule A dog tag fees.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer, whereas at the meeting held on January 16th, 2026, council approved the fees and charges bylaw 2026-02, including Schedule A setting out the fees for dog tags purchased between January 1st and March 15th. Now therefore be resolved that council receives for information emailed dated March 9th, 2026 from Kelly Watkins Treasurer advising a tax bill insert was included with the interim tax bills, which provided information regarding dog tag fees and renewals. However, the insert listed the incorrect fee amount for the dog tags purchased between January 1st and March 15th. And then in consideration of residents who have already submitted their dog tag renewal payments by mail using the incorrect amount and recognizing that the administrative cost of collecting the $5 difference would exceed the value of the fee difference, council approves staff accepting the $10 dog fee renewal fee for payments received by mail until March 31st, 2026. When the staff advised residents attending the municipal office in person or contacting the office that the correct renewal fee is $15, and that after March 31st, 2026, staff will ensure all dog tag renewal fees collected are in accordance with the fees and charges.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Resolution 9B, 13625, Quinte Conservation Authority, boat cleaning unit.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel, whereas at the meeting held April 25th, 2025, council passed resolution 13625 approving a partnership with Quinte Conservation Authority for the rotating placement of a CD3 wayside solar trailer boat cleaning station at boat launches in North Frontenac. Now therefore be resolved, the council receives for information an email dated February 20th, 2026 from Lindsay Nash, Outreach and Stewardship Coordinator at Quinte Conservation, providing a report detailing the usage of the CD3 boat cleaning units in 2025 and advising that QCA was unable to obtain the unit for 2026.
Comment? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I read the report and the usage. I know it's almost impossible to get. It would have been nice to see how many boats actually were launched, like a comparison of how many were cleaned.
217 uses though, right? Which I thought was pretty good. Anybody else? Councilor Fowler.
If somebody wanted to get their boat clean, could they approach these people and have it done?
Well, we're not getting it this year. So, yeah, I guess you could talk to Quinte. I don't know what they're doing with it. It sounds like they're not even getting it, but we don't really know. Definitely.
Just so, Mr. Fowler there, it's a requirement when you transfer boats from one lake to another, you clean it before you bring it to the other lake, so you can clean it at home.
In favor of the resolution? Opposed? Carried. Item 10A, Clerk's Administrative Report, Communications A section.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, second by Councilor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information Section 8 items of the Clerk's Administrative Report entitled Communications of Interest.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Communications B section, action items, B1, Municipality of St. Charles.
Moved by Councilor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives for information an email dated February 20th, 2026 from the clerk of the Municipality of St. Charles requesting support to strengthen self-defense protections and addressing rising home invasions in Ontario. And that Council of the Township of North Frontenac supports this initiative. And the council instructs the clerk to provide this resolution of support to the town of Moosonee, Municipality of St. Charles, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, Premier of Ontario, the Attorney General of Ontario, the Solicitor General of Ontario, Scott Reed, MP, and John Jordan, MPP.
Comments? Mr. Hermer?
Premier Ford sure made his position quite evident, didn't he?
Provincial politics, Councillor Haig.
Although we don't have a major issue here in our area, thank God, but I believe we should support this resolution and make it more aware to people that this is available.
Thank you. Councillor Fowler.
I believe that the educating the people and bring this to their attention, that to be aware that this could happen here. I hope it never does, but it could.
Well, it may, but we just don't know. You know, 'cause a lot of things happen behind, during the night or whatever. We just don't know. So, okay, in favor of the resolution? That is carried. Item 11A, Councillor Haig, Youth Entrepreneurship Initiatives, Incentive and Retention Programs.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, second by Councilor Hermer. Be resolved that council receives for information Councilor Hodges' administrative report entitled Youth Entrepreneurship Initiatives, Incentives, and Retention Programs. And the council recommends this initiative be forwarded to the Economic Development Task Force to review and investigate in more detail.
Comments? Councillor Haig?
I would like, if possible, to attend that meeting of the EDTF when they discuss this report, just to explain more and elaborate on the initiative.
Councillor Inglis?
I think this is a great initiative. It's true that to retain young people in this township requires a person to have a great deal of initiative and entrepreneurship. There's no jobs unless you make one. That's been my experience. So I think it's a great initiative. On the other hand, I do not want to use CIP money for this. We only get $15,000 a year. We have a brand new community improvement plan program that is potentially very high performance. We've only got $15,000. I do not want to cut into that. You're very welcome to come to any of our meetings.
So on that, in order to possibly include that, we would have had to go back and redo the CIP program again, and we decided because the money is not substantial, we would not do that. We would ask, we'll set aside different money for that. So the CIP money would stay the same. And the other thing is, when you do get it at your forum, you might want to be in contact with Frontenac Business Services. I think they do a lot of this already, or they will be able to potentially assist with this work. And as well, the county's economic development team, they have just hired a new economic development officer. Let's put that individual to work if we can. So any support we can get, maybe some money, that'd be even great. Better, rather. Okay.
I think we would probably want to deputize you as a leader. And these are great ideas, but they're going to take a lot of work from it. If you do come to our next ETF meeting, you're probably going to be asked to lead a subgroup looking into the details of how you might do this.
I wouldn't mind, of course, but just to answer you back on the CIP, this is community also advancement. If we manage to open up one business by a youth entrepreneur, I believe it will have a lot of positive impact on our community. I don't see anyone disagreeing with that. I'm not saying the CIP program as it is not, it's great, it's amazing. If we can find additional resources to support this initiative, if approved, I would be more than happy. That was the initial thought of having just a portion of the CIP going there. But I'm, of course, open to keeping that 15,000 and adding additional funds here. I'd be more than happy to to lead on that as well.
Your job is to convince this table.
Welcome to the Township Council of North Frontenac. Okay, Deputy Mayor.
So back when you come to the meeting, you'll see that there's certain things that a subcommittee of the Economic Development Task Force is doing. Every quarterly meetings now, starting to set that up. Maybe we can integrate this part into it. So
Nice to see. Okay, so in favor of the resolution? Carried. Okay. Item 11B, Environmental Task Force proposed short-term rental regulation.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Ingalls. Be it resolved that council receives for information the administrative report entitled Proposed Short-Term Rental Regulation. And the council instructs the clerk planning manager and the public works manager to prepare a report for a future council meeting outlining steps required to create a new short-term rental bylaw, including costs and realistic time requirements. And that such a bylaw would build on the experience and best practices of municipalities similar to North Frontenac, and that such a bylaw would include the elements summarized in this report and described in the Appendix A short-term rentals recommended bylaw components dated February 2026.
Councilor Hermer.
This is probably a good idea, but it's a logistical nightmare to enforce.
I think the report was, kind of highlighted that, but yes. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor?
yeah, I just want to thank John for writing this report. It's written very well. And there's a lot of effort put in by a subcommittee in the task force. This is something we've been talking about previous council. It's going on for years. And I think it's something that is sort of, it's out there and people aren't really paying attention to it. And this is sort of bringing it to the forefront. We're asking for a report from council to see where we can go from here. So I think it's a worthwhile venture. I remember going to a meeting up in Addington Highlands, and they had hired a consulting firm to look at their master plan. And one of the things that they mentioned at Addington Highlands did not want to have a short-term rental bylaw or policy, and the consultant said that's going to hurt them in the long run. So I think it's something we need to look at. And again, it's just asking staff to come up with a report. If you should really read this in depth, all the appendices and everything, it's quite detailed, and it's something that's needed.
Actually did, but thank you for most of it anyway. I was shocked to see 218 just advertised. So there's going to be more than that. I was absolutely shocked. Councilor Hayes.
It's a great report, John. Thank you. And I believe we have to go through that route, especially if we are discussing also the municipal accommodation tax that's might be coming in the future. It's my absolute conviction that we cannot do that without doing this first. So this is a prerequisite if ever the county or our township are going for the municipal accommodation tax. This has to be implemented first.
Councilor Inglis.
We are becoming more visible to the outside community. I don't know if everybody else gets the same emails I do from Airbnb executives when they want to talk. No, if we're unregulated. Right. Our neighbors are also unregulated. If we did pursue that, we would be in a somewhat of a leadership position in this issue, and others would follow, I'm sure, and give us advice about their experience as well. This is backed by the Lake Association Alliance. Pretty well all the local lake associations are clamoring for this in some way. And I realize this is a potentially an administrative nightmare, but it's got to be designed to be revenue neutral. There have to be fees charged to commercial short-term rentals that cover the cost of enforcement and administration.
On that, Cache Lake has the largest number. I don't know how involved they have been to date and so on, but we should make sure that we involve them.
Pretty much put together appendix A.
All right, that's good to hear. Okay. What, Councilor Haig?
Just a final note, there are other resources that we can tap into. The RTO system, RTO organizations, they have lots of resources, or HTO specifically, which we fall under. They have lots of material on their website, and their staff are also willing to help and provide additional information if requested. I have good connection with them if you'd like to hook you up with them, or you can easily get access to that as well.
Thank you. Councilor Inglis?
Got to be clear, this report simply asks, well, it asks a lot. It asks for money to pay staff to look into it. So it is a commitment. It is a financial commitment.
Right. Okay. In favor of the resolution as presented? That resolution's carried. It's long overdue, and I'm glad some of the legal issues in the whole industry have been sorted out. Fine, okay. Item C, to assume a portion of Buckshot Lake Road as a highway.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, second by Councilor Hermer. Be resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled to assume a portion of Buckshot Lake Road as a highway. And the council accepts the offer from Jonathan Tooley to transfer the portion of Buckshot Lake Road located in part of Lot 1, Concession 17, Geographic Township of Barrie, being Part 9 Unregistered Plan 13R5191. The council approves paying the legal fees for the preparation of the transfer, registering the transfer and bylaw and law society fees and miscellaneous disbursements at an estimated cost of $1,000. All legal work completed by the township solicitor for sheriff certificates, mortgage discharges, appraisals, and any unforeseen title issues shall be covered by the property owner. The council instructs the treasurer to transfer the township's legal costs associated with the property transfer, including preparation of the transfer, title search, and registering the bylaw from the operating contingency reserve. And the council authorizes the mayor and clerk to sign the transfer for this portion of the road allowance, and council will consider a bylaw at a future meeting to assume this portion of Buckshot Lake Road.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item D, request for the township to transfer the Shore Road allowance in exchange for a portion of Mountain Road.
Moved by Councilor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Request for Township to Transfer Shore Road Allowance. Tooley, the council does not approve the request to transfer the Shore Road Allowance as part of the Mountain Road being transferred to the township. That if the property owner would like to acquire the Shore Road Allowance, they can apply to purchase same in accordance with the sale of land policy.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item E, amendments to the procedural policy for members of council, committees, and task forces.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, second by Councilor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled amendments to the procedural policy for members of council, committees, and task forces. The council approves the recommended amendments with the following changes. The council instructs the clerk to provide council with the amended policy at an upcoming meeting for consideration.
Good comments. Councilor Hermer.
Well, I'm glad to see that we are going to have a little bit of control over attendance.
Noted. Anyone else? So for this resolution, we want no changes. We're asking for no changes over what's originally or what's being proposed here. That was that blank line that was in there. So, Councilor Inglis,
What kinds of resolutions require personal attendance?
just think how I would answer that.
We haven't had any to date. But it is in there, so that if council had a meeting and they thought that people being here was important, that you could pass a resolution.
In public, you're not talking about closed session, you're talking about public sessions where, you know, I just can't imagine where a person online isn't. Yeah, but a person online supposedly is present.
It's a little easier if everybody's online. It's much easier to control, much easier to have everybody have their say than it is if you have one or two online and everybody else is in person. So it really works in everybody's favor. Councilor Hermer, then Councilor Fowler.
Well, one point that I don't understand really is 48-hour notice. There's going to be circumstances where that's impossible to do.
Words endeavor. Councilor Fowler.
You know, we work hard and volunteer to do this job. This is more of a service type job. And we owe it to the public to be here as much as we can in person. I think it's really important.
All right, so we'll call the question in favor of the resolution as presented without any exceptions. In favor? Carried. So Tara, what's the procedure from now, from this point forward?
So we will make the changes that you've approved today, and we'll bring the bylaw back. And we're gonna make it.
Item F.
Moved by Councilor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Road Allowance Closure Lot 16 Concession 1, being Part 4 on Registered Plan 13R 8656 titulation. The council instructs the clerk to advise the property owner and their solicitor if council is agreeable to passing a bylaw to close, stop off, and transfer the road allowance, provided the impacted property owners pay the township's legal work to have the bylaw registered and are responsible for the completion and cost of having the road allowance resurveyed and the legal work required to correct the title. And that council approves an exemption to bylaw 2025-04, being the sale of land policy in this case, due to the previous passing of the Township of Palmerston North and Cananto bylaw 2089, including not requiring an application, public notice, admin fee, and land cost. That's right.
Comments? In favor? Carried. This brings us to the Plevna Rink project, item G.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councilor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Manager of Community Development Administrative Report entitled Plevna Rink Project Budget Consideration.
So we have a series of options here that are presented to us. Brooke?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a short prepresentation if you wanted me to proceed with that first.
would
There's
love
been
you
a
to do
couple
it.
changes, so.
Okay, I'd love to
Okay.
have that happen.
All right,
Do you
great.
come up here or you have to use,
Yep, are you good with me here?
you're good, I'm good with you
Okay.
there.
Perfect. Okay, so obviously you guys have read in the report. I prepared a report for some budget considerations for the rink. So just a reminder of what it used to look like. There's a couple pictures of the asphalt undermining, you know, the plywood. It was quite rough, so council had approved to proceed with replacing the rink. So some milestones where we've hit today. So we demolished the old building. We did some hole ramming, tree clearing, concrete pad, rink boards, and engineering. So those are a couple pictures of throughout the process. Yep. Yeah, the old rink, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, so that's what it looks like now. It was open this winter, kind of partially. It wasn't, there wasn't adequate lighting and stuff like that. We had some temporary measures in place to get it operational for the winter. So the final steps of the project are the roof build, which is why we're here today. There will also be a built-in change room, electrical hookup, and then finishing elements. So there's a little mock-up picture here that was AI generated to note on the record. So it's not perfect, but it's kind of what it's going to look like with the built-in change room, with some accessibility features, which we were quite happy about. All one level from the change room onto the concrete surface and then over to the rink. So a little history of where we were at for the roof. So we did issue a RFP back in August of 2025. There were no proposals received, so we changed it up a little bit. We got some engineering for what we thought would contractors would want to bid on. We reissued that RFP in January 2026 with two options. So option one was a wood frame construction per the engineer drawings, and option two was a fabric dome. There were several proposals received and none that conformed with the budget that we had. So to talk a little bit about the budget that we had, so we had $332,000 available for the roof. The lowest bid for option number one was $540,000. So we entered negotiations per our procurement policy with the lowest bidder, and we kind of came up with a couple options that council could consider. Removal of the soffit and fascia at $46,000. And then we did change some additional components of the gauge of steel, switching from wood to steel posts, and did save an additional $28,000 there. So we ended up with $465,000 at the negotiated price. And then because of the switching from wood to steel posts, there will be another $4,000 in extra engineering. But with the savings of $28,000, it makes sense to pay that extra engineering for that switch. So option B is proposed to council to proceed without the soffit and fascia, or option C to continue with the soffit and fascia. So those were the current numbers before we work into fundraising, etc. So just a couple things to consider about the option B to proceed without soffit and fascia. The reason we're giving both options, eventually it would be a budget consideration to add the soffit and fascia or something to help control animals, structure protection, appearance, etc. So there would be future budget considerations if option B was chosen today. So fundraising, I think this number on the screen really shows how supportive our community is with this project. So previous donations was $16,000 that we received while going in with the grant. From then on, we did receive almost $39,000, and that was what you received in your report. And then since the March 13th report went out, we did receive in the last week another $14,500 from two more donors. So a total of just shy of $70,000 was received in donations and Rink board advertising. So full project costs. So these numbers are the entire project. So if option B is chosen, it's an $830,000 project. If option C is chosen, $876,000. So the new numbers are option B would be $82,895, and option C with including the soffit and fascia is $129,705. And then just note that we have rounded these numbers up just to provide a small contingency should there be slight changes. So just again, to go over the benefits and support, the rink has been utilized so much this winter, more than I've ever seen, which is awesome. People are really loving the new space. It is a community need here. There's great economic impact. The accessibility features that the new facility is proposed to have is great for our community. Community support, we've obviously had a lot of that, which is great. extending the playing time, seasons, increasing different events that could be held, and promoting healthy lifestyles. So just to summarize the council options, so from when you received your report to today, I've redlined the numbers that have changed. So we were at a option 1 or A, sorry, is to not approve today, and no roof would be built, and I can contact the granting agency. Option B is approved additional funding, excluding the soffit and fascia at 82,895, rounded to 85,000. And then option C, approved the additional project funding, including the soffit and fascia, at 129,705, rounded to 135,000. And I'm sure you guys have questions, so I'm here for whatever question you guys have.
Thank you for putting that together. Really appreciate it. Okay, questions, comments, council? Councillor Inglis.
So this money would come out of the CCBF, kind of the Community Building Fund, which is the old gas tax revenue generated. Currently at 1.19 million, taking the more expensive option out, we'd be still over $1 million in balance in that fund. What kind of annual revenue are we getting into that fund? Can you give us a rough idea?
Right now, we receive about 225,000 a year. So we get the portion from the county plus our portion.
You can see where I'm going with this. I'm in favor of it. Just you received $14,000 in new community grant or funding from a private. There's a lot of interest in the community. I think this is worth doing.
Councillor Fowler.
I think this is a great project too. Not only for winter activities, but summer activities. I guess there'll be a pickleball court in there. Or let's say if somebody's going to run an art show or something like that, they could do it in there undercover and it'd be protected. And you have your summer fest. That's just another area that's sheltered where we can have other activities. I think it's a great idea. I think the C is probably the best thing.
Councillor Grimmer.
Well, it's going to be a showplace for public activity, so I think option C would be suitable.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, obviously I'm in favor for this. I just know by talking to the community at Bingo and around that everyone's in favor of this. And Brooke, I was just going to ask, there's still more opportunity for fundraising, correct? I mean, people may come forward.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. And as this public report comes out and people start seeing stuff, we may see more donations that could reduce that number further, but that is the hard number as of today. We may see more to reduce that number for sure.
Councillor Haig.
I also believe it's a great project, and in my opinion, if we delay construction, it will only add costs. So better do it sooner rather than later. My question, I don't know if you have considered as part of generating income, imposing a fee on usage. Is that a consideration or it's not on the table? This is one thing. The second thing, the soffit and fascia, do they have any performance or just for appearance? What I understand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to answer your first question, to fee for use, we have not considered at this point. I don't think that's the route we would go, but that's council's discretion if they wanted me to look into that. And number two, yes, there is certainly purpose for the soffit and fascia. A big one is animals, birds, subsequent droppings on the concrete surface, mental health, as well as appearance and structure protection.
Mr. Good.
How much money are you getting now on signage on it?
For you, Mr. Mayor, currently we're sitting at 18,000, and that includes all our expenses with signage.
And that's per year?
It will go down a bit because of renewal rates of 50%-ish, maybe a bit more of that annually if people choose to renew. They don't have to anymore.
So the profit from some of this could go back into the fund. Yeah.
I think the intent with the Rink board sales is that the revenue generated going forward would just help with the maintenance and the upkeep of the facility.
It's good reasoning. Thank you.
So I looked at Charlotte Lakes, which is similar to this. It won't be quite as aesthetically pleasing as ours will be, if this is even close. They don't have sophistication, but you can see issues starting already. They didn't have quite enough money to finish. There's pieces of flashing that are missing and so on. And I also looked at the one in Harrowsmith, which is still Frontenac, and it's completely steel. Steel underside, it's a composite steel roof of some sort, steel beams, and it is really an aesthetically pleasing structure. And they have their own farms there, they have farmers markets there. I mean, it's quite the facility. So I think it's money worth spending, personally. Anybody else want to make a comment? I want to give Wayne credit. When we originally talked about this, we set aside $700,000 and he said it will not be enough. Thank you. You were right. Here we are. Anyway, and
There's a lot of stuff that's underestimated. That always comes in over.
like the steel. Is there any opportunity, because the amount of materials, maybe this is operational, I shouldn't be asking, but I'm going to anyway. The amount of materials in this job is so significant. The steel, the sophistication, the trusses. Is there any opportunity for us just to buy this stuff directly, based on using the contractor's figures, and save some money? Or would rather be a subsequent negotiation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be discussed during negotiations. Most contractors are not favorable to do that. I think we could lose some interest proceeding.
No, English?
Are you allowed to tell us who the low bidder was?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it was J. Martin Carpentry Construction, located in Frontenac.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that somebody local finally got a job with the township.
Mr. Fowler?
My main concern about this thing is this project has to be done right. It has to be safe. The public are going to be using this, and it's got to be built right, and we shouldn't take too many shortcuts. Shouldn't get any.
Anybody else? In favor of the, sorry, which option would, option C? In favor of favor of adopting option C? Sorry.
Can I read it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm doing the clerk's job.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, second by Councillor Hermer. Be resolved, the council receives for information the administrative report. The council selects option C regarding the project budget overage, and the council approves the project proceeding at the negotiated contract price, recognizing a current funding shortfall of $129,705, and directs the treasurer to transfer up to $135,000 from the Canada Community Building Fund to this project to address the shortfall and provide a small contingency.
Before we go on, I have one last question to Brooke. $6,000 for additional contingency. Is that going to be enough? Are you going to come back here and ask for another $5?
Through Mr. Mayor, through our negotiations with the contractor, it was very clear that we weren't going to be asking for any more. So my answer is going to be no.
What? 135?
We're not coming back for more. And we have sufficient money left for the electrical and those components. We double, triple checked those with contractors. This should be the final.
Okay.
Should be completed.
Thank you. In favor of option C, of the resolution is read by Tara? Carried. Thank you, council. I'd like to take a break till 10:30 and then we'll get back at it. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to resume our meeting with item C, mandatory septic inspection proposal, a time of transfer.
Moved by Councilor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives the Public Works Manager's administrative report entitled Mandatory Septic Inspection Proposal at Time of Transfer. And that council approves option 4 being to expand the current voluntary septic inspection program to include mandatory septic inspections for properties at the time of sale, with services being provided by the Mississippi Rideau Septic System Office. And that prior to the implementation, the Public Works Manager and clerk shall complete further research on the following: proposal details from the MRSSO, costs and user fees, duties assigned to each department, including staffing impacts and the role of the MRSSO, implementation plan, draft bylaw provisions, proposed exemption criteria for family members, and qualifications required by others to conduct alternate inspections. And the staff will report back to council at a future meeting.
Thank you. Comments on this? Councilor Fowler.
I think this is a good thing. Most people, or at least my experience has been, when you buy a new home, you want to make sure the septic is working, the water's pumped. And I think that's a good thing. Only little catch that I could see is if somebody's selling their property in the winter time, are they going to be able to inspect it properly during the winter months? I never thought of that until this.
I hadn't either. Anyone else? Councilor Haig?
In the report, they mentioned that the sales data, we get it from Terranet, and we are to subscribe and pay around $8,200 per year. I'm just wondering if there is any other means of obtaining the sales data without this subscription, or any other alternative to that?
Kelly, do we have? For instance, like if we didn't go to Terranet, how soon would we know about a house transfer or a property transfer?
So we may never know about a house transfer. So currently we do receive transfer information from MPAC, but our agreement is that we cannot use it for township business. So it is for specific purposes that we can use that information. And they obtain the information from Terranet. So the way it's set up with through the province, we would have to get our own subscription to be able to use that data.
Deputy Mayor?
Well, this has been a long conversation at the environmental task force about how we find out how people sell. So obviously we would educate all the real estate agents here, that they would tell the buyers and sellers that there is a bylaw here, this has to be done. And forgive me, Tara, because I know I brought this up many times at environmental task force. When a house is purchased, there has to be a reconciliation of taxes. Because if I pay my taxes today and I sell my house in January, I've paid that 3 or 4 months worth of taxes that have to be reconciled during the legal binding contract once it's sold. Are you not, or do you use that data? How do you get that data to reconcile the taxes? You have to tell the lawyer that John Doe owes $500, or that comes from this software?
So no, so we do. So if they go through a lawyer, the lawyer would ask for a tax certificate that just purely says this is the balance due. Tax certificates are issued for mortgages, for all kinds of reasons. So it's not, for sure a sale. And then anyone that does a private sale, they're not doing that, right? So there could be a sale that didn't go through the lawyer, or they've decided that, I'm good, I'll just pay whatever is left. And that doesn't actually happen. So, I mean, the majority probably happen that way, and it is generally done through a lawyer. But again, that would be.
Even if it's done through a lawyer, it may not be for a sale, it may be for a mortgage renewal, or for whatever reason, you don't know for sure it's a sale.
Yeah, and if they do it through the lawyer, they may not ask for a tax certificate. They may just go in and say, here's my tax bill, I paid it, and do it that way. I mean, all the sales are not the same, so it's not guaranteed. Again, the majority probably are, but there are one-offs, or some that don't go that way.
Councilor Haig?
Does this apply also to transfer between family members if it's not sale? Would this mandatory septic inspection apply as well?
So in our environmental task force, we said that transfers between family, that wouldn't be required. For now,
So we have to define family.
they would have to define family. Then there, it's going to be in the report.
So I voted for this, I supported this initial resolution when we talked about it, and I started reading it, and I went back and read it a couple more times. Because first of all, the Terranet dollars and cents, we didn't care for it. But you're telling me, even if we know that there's a transfer, we can't use any impact information. We have to have our own source of information. Okay. I see this only being successful with an outreach program. A really good outreach program. It's going to take a while to implement this. But we have to start, if it's not revenue neutral, which means covering Terranet's costs and everything else, that's the only way it's going to work. Because, you know, somebody goes in, the ideal time when you buy a house, you check the septic system. Here's the inspector comes in, and if there's a cost, it's minimal. And by the way, how do we reconcile that with a volunteer program where there's no charge? You know, I don't know what you've done in your task force, and I don't want to redo all this. That's, oh, trust me, you guys do it. I'm just having a number of questions here about how we should proceed, and I'm just not comfortable enough yet.
Well, I think when we talked about this, you know, the idea of mandatory septic inspections right from the beginning was not an option. So this was sort of like a step process. We could try for a year or two and see how it works out. That's actually what we said we would look at. If you look at the short-term rentals, one of the criteria in the short-term rentals is proper use of septic system. So there's sort of another step we'd be inspecting short-term rental septic inspections. So as the program builds, I'm not sure exactly where it's going to go, but we have to build these little steps, and it will be a little bit of a cost at the beginning. But where it goes from there, I'm not sure.
My only other comment is you have the name of a particular consulting contractor in there. I don't think you should have that in. I think just call them a contractor or tell them something. Because right now there's only one supplier, but down the road, 2 years from now, there may not be one, so there'll be three. And then you end up with an issue. Pardon? Okay. Well, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, we did it, and that was a key part of option 4 that we're recommending, and why we really kept the additional cost down to just the cost of Terranet. Because see, it's an extension of our voluntary program. So they'll do their, say, 50 inspections under the voluntary program, and then they'll do the additional inspections required under this. And there's savings and cost effectiveness in doing that. There are other options. There are consultants available that will offer this service. But with the research we did, their inspection costs will run about $300 per inspection. Whereas MRSSO would just extend the voluntary program, so it's about $65 plus their admin, so it ends up being around $115 per inspection. And then it works for us on the administration side because we administer the voluntary program. It's just producing landowner information for MRSSO for these additional time of sale inspections. It's all integrated into the voluntary system, so that's why the costs are where they are and the effort is limited.
Okay. Councilor Fowler.
Just one other thing, would there be a certificate of proof that this has been done? And would it be available to the owner to use if they're going to be selling it to somebody else too?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, there would be currently for the voluntary inspections, they issue a report with their findings and recommendations, and it would be the same for these mandatory inspections, and the owner would receive a copy of that report and would be given to the township to confirm that they met the inspection requirements.
Counselor Inglis.
I'm more in favor of option two, getting the inspection done by a private contractor. Consultant. I can see problems getting the Mississippi Rideau people involved. You want this inspection done at the time of sale. You want it. Maybe it's a condition of purchase. And I just can't see Eric coming out here on 24 hours notice of the inspection at those rates.
Kelly?
If I can, we wouldn't find out till after the deed is registered, so we wouldn't know prior to the sale closing. This program would be, we find out that the property is sold, which may be up to a month later. So this is definitely somebody's already taken ownership, they have the property, then we identify that it needs to be, that the inspection has to happen. So we wouldn't know ahead of time. It would be after the sale has closed.
Really robust PR program. Counselor Good.
Yeah, would the buyer know that he was gonna have to pay this extra after the sale, or is this? And how would he know? Or would it be the seller? Like, that's could have bombed it up onto somebody, especially if they're buying a house, whatever. And they're limited out on the mortgage on it, and then they gotta put up another, whatever, how much money for it.
Darwin?
Yeah, we discussed that a lot. Like I want to have the first correspondence they receive as a new homeowner or a new resident. By the way, you need a mandatory septic inspection, but someone mentioned earlier about outreach and getting the word out there that for the most part, people will know or should know at the time of sale, they're going to need this and incorporate it into their offer to purchase or the conditions, you know, their house inspection or pre-purchase inspection. So that would be the hope that, you know, through outreach and real estate agents and notices that the township puts out, that people purchasing or transferring title are aware of this at the time.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with Darwin's comments. Again, I would guess 90% of all sales in North Frontenac are done by local real estate agents. And we're going to let them know that this is a bylaw that is coming. So they will inform their seller, the purchaser, and they can negotiate amongst themselves who pays for it. That's just negotiations, excuse me, of buying a home. So I think that's where most of it's going to come from. They'll have that certificate anyway, Wayne, when time comes. And I think if someone's buying up here, a condition of sale is going to be make sure your septic system works. I think Brad mentioned that, right? I don't think anyone's going to buy up here without knowing their well is working well and their septic system is functioning.
Most lenders require that. Counselor Haig?
Will there be a waiving of the fees for new builds, new septic, and or something selling within the span of, let's say, X number of months to a different owner as well? Will there be a waiver of the fees?
Yeah, I think, what did we say, Tara? 10 years. So if you build a new septic system today, we're saying for 10 years, you don't need an inspection. So if you sell it within 5 years, you don't need an inspection.
But if you sell it at year 12, you get an inspection and then you resell it at year 15, does that buyer have to redo inspection?
Inspections are 10 years. That certificate is good for 10 years.
Okay, all right. There's still more work to do in this, right? We clean it all up and whatever, and a lot of work. I think you guys have done, committee's done just a tremendous amount of work, staff and so on. There's a lot in this. So thank you.
Yeah, we have a great environmental task force. It's right from staff to volunteers, and the chair, they're amazing.
You were doing so well. You really were. We haven't got to the housing task force yet either. Okay, all right. And we'll call a resolution in favor of sorry, which option do we want? It's option 4. One was recommended option 4. So, not vote. So in favor of the resolution incorporating option 4.
Pardon me? It would resolve how this would work in the winter.
There's a lot more work to come yet. Okay,
Okay.
Counselor Fowler.
Just, I was looking after somebody's house in the winter time and they were selling it. And the company did come by to do a winter inspection, although it was difficult to get cut through the frozen ground and things like that. But it was done to their satisfaction.
They aren't crazy about pumping a tank in the middle of winter either, because disposal is really expensive. So, okay, so resolution, including option number 4, in favor? That resolution is carried. Did you get everything that you need out of that? Okay, you didn't screen it up, none. Okay. An update regarding the 2023 Tandem Mac insurance claim.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Public Works Manager's administrative report entitled Update regarding 2023 Tandem Mac repair costs. The council instructs the treasurer to transfer the $10,000 deductible from the operating contingency reserve.
Comments? Councillor Inglis.
So this was an automatic transmission that did something the driver didn't expect and he lost control. Is there any efficiency in transmission for these vehicles, or is more operator training needed in certain road conditions? I want.
Well, we have a mix of standards and automatics, and some people love the automatics and some don't, but that was just part of it was the shifting, it downshifts and combination of where he was, and it spun out. So this truck, when it's coming back, is going to have the transmission analyzed and calibrated and reset.
Anyone else? In favor of the resolution? Carried. So item J, Cemetery Scotia Trust resignation as trustee.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the treasurer's administrative report entitled Cemetery Scotia Trust Resignation as trustee. The council authorizes the treasurer to transfer the funds from Scotia Trust to the Bank of Montreal Cemetery account.
Comments? In favor? Carried. So we're into the external committees, the Environmental Task Force, item 11A, or 12A, sorry. Which one? I don't have it. Sorry, it's on here. My apologies, folks. There it is. Advertising lands for public sale. I actually didn't do this, but forgot it. Sorry.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives the treasurer's administrative report regarding tax sale, advertising of lands for public sale, March 19, 2026, for information.
Comments? Councillor Fowler, one of these is an island in the Snow Road. This wouldn't be that. First, I should ask clerk or the treasurer, do we know who owns these properties originally? Because there's an island there, the locals really don't know who owns it. This is an eve.
Yeah, that, I believe, Menard people, even Noella, thought it was theirs, but it was, some of the land has been, designated as hydroland all along there as well. So I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that there's that one island, the larger one, right at the curve of the road. And I think that
It's got no access to it unless you go down to Stump Lake, right? It's water only.
way down by Stump Lake.
No, it's up towards you. But the only way to get there is by boat. There's no land access. There's no boat launch.
Not really that far out in the water, but it's there.
You drive your car across there. Okay. All right. Anyway, any other comments? In favor? Gary. Okay, Environmental Task Force.
Moved by Counselor Hodge, seconded by Counselor Fowler. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the notes of a meeting of the Environmental Task Force held February 24th, 2026.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Housing Advisory Task Force.
Moved by Counselor Hodge, seconded by Counselor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the notes of a meeting of the Housing Advisory Task Force held March 11th, 2026.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Does anyone wish to give notice of motion? I'm sitting here, they want to build a new hospital in Kingston. And they have been asking, they asked county council for basically a letter of support. And council did not extend in their resolution to accept that, or to provide that letter, did not extend it to Central or to North Frontenac or Frontenac Island. I'm just wondering if we should be proactive and discuss whether or not we should do this and submit this as well. The council didn't extend it in the resolution. It only went to the county of Frontenac. But the Township of South Frontenac has also provided a letter. It wouldn't hurt, more the merrier here. Councilor Fowler?
Do you want one of us to put a motion forward to have that brought up at the next meeting?
That's the idea.
I'll put that motion forward.
Right, seconded. I'll talk about it in just a second, where, the idea is and so on and so forth. It'll be a long time before we get there. So some of us may not see it, but hey, take it seriously. Okay. Discuss. Where'd it go? Hang on. I happen to have the minutes right here. Just bear with me for a second. Township of North Frontenac supports the city of Kingston's motion on advocating the province of Ontario for the prioritization and full funding of the Kingston Health Sciences Center redevelopment project. That would just be the notice of motion for discussion. It looks like the location would be up at Gardner's Road and 401.
This is a bit of a complex issue. We know that the province funds capital infrastructure, but a lot of us think that they're underfunding services. So there's a question, maybe some research should be done before we approve it.
This is just supporting that, the request, the province of Ontario, and we'll provide this in writing for you. The Township of North Frontenac supports the city of Kingston's request to have the province pay for 100% of the cost of the project.
The thinking is that may divert money from service, that infrastructure spend at the provincial level.
Okay. You know, land, yeah, okay, I'm not gonna. What they do, what they do not support is actually significant.
Moved by Counselor Fowler, second by Counselor Hodge. Be it resolved that council approves the notice of motion from Counselor Fowler and will discuss advocating the province of Ontario for the prioritization and full funding of the Kingston Health Sciences Center redevelopment project at an upcoming meeting.
In favor? Carried. I'll see if I can even generate the report that the county saw it, talking to hospitals and basically whatever else. Okay. Counselor Hoodle.
I just don't understand one thing you said. County council did not?
County
Explain it.
council I didn't say anything either, and neither did Counselor Fowler. But I was a little surprised that they didn't suggest that the resolution be forwarded to the townships to incorporate their support. But the county supported it, yes, and South Frontenac supported it.
I think that's because Kingston has.
They're probably closer to the truth than you care to admit. Yes.
Sometimes that's a good thing.
Yes, no kidding. Okay, so that brings us to, we have no motions, written notice which was previously given. So now we're into council portfolios. So I am the first one up. Candidate, various governance committee meetings at the county level will have a new procedure policy proposal that went to council, and it's now gone back for final tweaking, and will come back to council. Attended a virtual seminar with the MVCA with flooding potential and so on. On one hand, and Roy, you can step into office if you want, but on one hand, there isn't as much concern as you would think about potential for flooding, but it depends on spring rains, the speed of the runoffs and so on. So they monitored Silver Lake, they monitored Palmerston Lake and Shabamika Lake. The ice thicknesses were in the 14 to 16 inch range, which is reasonable. So anyway, so did that. We had the HATF task force, and then they had a county council meeting. And Scott Reed spent about 15 or 20 minutes talking to us about also. I was actually quite impressed with his presentation. It was apolitical, and no, this party's better or not, and so on. And he just talked about whether or not it's a reasonable alternative. And he said, if you take all the people driving the 401 today, all the people on Via Rail, and all the people flying, and put them all together, you would have enough people to make the lower end of also break even. But that's whatever. So he says this project will never happen. That's his opinion. But if it does, then the first leg is Ottawa to Montreal. And he is suggesting that we take a stand that if they start expropriating property, they only expropriate the property where they're going to build first. Like they could be coming right through here. We don't know. We haven't got a clue where they're going. I've been to 3 presentations, and every time I get a different impression of where they might go, and they always say, we don't know. But it could come right through here. It could come right through, could come through the south part of North Frontenac or the north part of Central Frontenac, or it could go south. We don't know. So.
The concern about expropriation, if you look at the Pickering Airport in the 70s, all that land is expropriated. That land is still empty today, right? They've done nothing with it.
That's exactly what his point was, because now it impacts, because most of us do live within this corridor, that could impact our ability to sell. It could impact sell our properties. It could impact our ability to expand our properties. And it's kind of not fair to also have this hanging out there for us. Apparently they're supposed to make a decision by the end of the year, which way they're going to go. But it's so important to get our name out there, and if you look at the interactive map, there's no Frontenac's comment with an X, we don't want it. Frontenac does the same. So that was really interesting to hear him. But he's, for the very reasons that Roy mentioned, he's saying we should be, if they decide to go forward with part of it, we should be saying expropriate that, do that, and then worry about the rest. Don't expropriate land you're never going to use. So I thought that was good. Anyway, that happened. From a county perspective, just to give you some idea what the county's doing, as of March the 12th, beginning January the 1st, they have 74 job postings. They're working on summer students. They've gone to, they've hired a new community development officer, which was part of my comment earlier when we talked about the youth project. They've done a St. Lawrence Career Fair. Fairmont Home is constantly constantly recruiting, and they're recruiting additional part-time paramedics. As the ambulance fleet is increasing. I believe it's one ambulance every year for the next 7 or 8 years, and we've been pushing to upgrade their spare fleet. So last year was 1 ambulance and 2 paramedics, and 2 additional ambulances. Court cost of about $250,000, including box and back. So Frontenac paramedics operate the paramedicine program. It's extremely successful. I've been asking questions about the backlog. What do we need? Because it's only an SUV and a paramedic. So Frontenac Business Services is working to support healthcare in our community. They are launching a medical practitioner recruitment loan. And it's upwards of $150,000. It'll be available to doctors and nurse practitioners who are qualified to practice in Ontario and help them to establish a practice in an area. So if you have a doctor who wants to be on his own, they could be eligible for this. 10-year amortization, $150,000, interest-only payments in year 1, and interest rate at prime. So everybody's working on this. That's really good to have. The economic development officer's name is Emma Stuke. I have met her. She seems really nice. We'll see. And we talked about the conservation authorities being 9 instead of 6 or 7 we originally proposed. So we'll be part of the St. Lawrence River Conservation Authority. County will also be part of the Eastern Lake Ontario Conservation Authority. So that's about it. No municipal lake associations, no municipal service corporation meetings. Councillor Good?
Just received 3 water closing, Charlotte wells closings. I don't know when I'm gonna get to them. That's why they.
Try skates out of the snowmobile, eh? Snowmobile here.
Unless you can't see what's on any snow.
Exactly. Exactly. Mike H, Ward 1, Lakelands Family Health Team.
Yeah. Since our last meeting, I've received communication from Lakeland Executive Director inviting me for an orientation session that's scheduled this next week. And they have also assigned a date for the board meeting, which I'm invited to. I'll report on that. But in the meantime, also, I think everyone will be pleased to know that they are recruiting a new doctor. And the new doctor is coming in April 1 to 8, just for to check the area and meet with the different people. We have a meeting with Corey here at the Township, and hopefully it will work. The good news is that he is friends with the existing doctor, with Dr. Weldon, and so he has a good input about the area So hopefully it will work. That will put us in a very good position, healthcare and doctor recruitment.
So that meeting is Deputy Mayor, myself, you, and that it, correct? I'm sorry. I reprioritized your week. Okay. Councilors, Deputy Mayor Hoodle.
So they had a board meeting at the MVCA last Monday, which I didn't attend. I was away, but I did talk to Sally yesterday for a couple hours. And as the mayor mentioned, we are now part of the St. Lawrence watershed. Well, I'm not sure what it's going to be called, but whatever it is, which includes Cornwall, because they have so much in common with us. So there is a concern, and I brought this up months ago when this first amalgamation was talked about. So Sally talks about normalizing level of service in the watershed areas. We have a lot of capital up here, a lot of dams that MVCA takes care of that really aren't part of the flood control, but they do it for recreational purposes, like on Farm Lake. And then a term comes up, what's called benefiting municipalities. So when we vote on funding for Kashiwakaback Dam, that's already been done, but I just give that as an example. Her concern is, what is Cornwall going to care about North Frontenac? Doesn't affect them at all. Now, luckily, Ottawa is still part of it, but that's gonna, and why I'm saying this, and I know, Mayor, you meet with John Jordan on a regular basis. So we have to make sure that the funding for the dams is not downloaded to the municipality, because we won't be able to afford it. Right? So these are all, we don't have enough information yet, but this is the talk that's going around through the CAOs and the GMs of the conservation authorities, because we have so much infrastructure in North Frontenac. The board is going to be made up differently. Ottawa won't have such a large presence, which could hurt us, because Ottawa, when we talk about our dams, John has always mentioned that, Ottawa pays so much for our infrastructure here. The board will be made up of county members, not township members. And we're not sure yet, it's going to go by population. We're not sure yet how many county councillors would be on this board. So we'll have to see. We'll have more information. There's supposed to be something coming out in the near future explaining more. There's going to be a transition team set up. Each conservation authority will have to create a transition committee and how this is going to move forward. They have now said, previously the government has said there'll be no job loss. Now they're saying no frontline jobs will be lost. So, and so obviously the managers and Sally and all other general managers and other CAs are worried when that comes out, but that's usually what happens at amalgamation. I don't think it took anyone by surprise. I think that's about it. The four GMs from the CAs that are amalgamating, they meet on a regular basis. And we'll just have to see where it goes. The budget for the MVCA will come out probably in September this year, because they have to close everything off for the end of the year because of the new conservation authority. Still a lot of unanswered questions. I think this will have an effect on North Frontenac somehow, whether it be financial or lack of service. But see as it moves forward. But if Jerry, if you could meet with John Jordan to make sure he understands how much infrastructure we have here in North Frontenac, and there's no way we'll be able to fund all that.
Do one better to do a meeting tonight, maybe Sally and Will too. Okay. But that's what we'll talk about what that is. The idea of the counties signing a rep was mentioned in passing by the mayor of South Frontenac, but it's still really early days. We're still a year out, so it's important to get our foot in the door now and become have our say.
Well, we have to have an election first.
That's true.
That's true. They can't.
Don't have a provincial election.
No, but we have an election in municipality, so you can't. There will be no board members assigned until after the election. My position of chair will continue, even if I didn't get elected, even if if I'm running, it will continue until, I believe February anyway. That's the way the legislations are written. Oh, we'll see how it goes.
Right, thank you. Counselor Hermer,
Nothing to report.
Counselor Fowler,
Yes, there is no Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance meeting that was canceled last week. As far as the seniors and law enforcement together, March 4th, we teamed up with the Community Cafe and had a presentation at OMPA regarding wills and powers of the attorney. It was a very interesting, informative meeting, and everybody enjoyed learning the stuff that you need to know. The next SALT program will be on April 24th at Charbert Lake. It'll be the rules of the road, and I believe it's on a Friday, and it's going to be at the Legion. I believe that's where it is. I have to double check. And there should be posters available. I don't know if they supplied you with posters, Brooke. So, okay. And then the next one in North Frontenac will be on May 8th at Snow Road, and it'll be about holistic medicine. Yesterday, we had the Frontenac OPP Detachment Board meeting. It was at Charbert Lake. MP Scott Reed attended, and he did notify that they're going to be placing defibrillators in all the police cars in Frontenac County. And the officers will take this out. They're all trained on how to use them, and that's a good thing. Also, calls for service in North and Central Frontenac equaled about 503 calls, and the information we got, they combined North and Central on that, so I can't break it down any better than that. And that's for the 3 months, January, February, and part of March. Our next meeting will be June 18th at 10 a.m. at Charbert Lake Municipal Offices. That's all I got.
okay. Counselor Inglis,
Nothing to report, except perhaps, I'm aware that the Palmerston Lake Association continues to meet in opposition to the Gravel Point proposed development. Haven't heard from them, but they're still quite active.
thank you. One of the things I forgot to include in my report was the Frontenac paramedics response time performance for 2025. There are 6 categories. First one is SCA, sudden cardiac arrest. Plan is 6 minutes. After 6 minutes, your chances diminish quickly. The intention is to be on site within 48% of the time within 6 minutes. They have achieved 38.1. Then CTAS 1, which is Canadian, I wrote that down, whatever it is, right? Acuity scale, triage acuity scale. And it goes from 1 to 5. So 8 minutes, the percentage is 70%. That's their target. They achieve 65.4. CTAS 2, which is not so critical. The plan is 10 minutes. It's 75% is the target. They achieve 66.8. And CTAS 3 is 60 minutes. 75% is the plan. They've made 99.3. And then 4 is 120 minutes, 75%, which is 99.85%. And then 240, which is 4 hours, 75% is the target. They put 100%. Now you have to appreciate the fact that our ambulances, even though they're owned by Frontenac County, we pay for them. They could be called out to anywhere, closest available ambulance. So that nice neat ambulance that's sitting in Robertsville, South Snow Road, there this morning, wasn't there yesterday. Once it's called, we may never get back. So it's depending where that ambulance goes, how long it sits at the hospital. And our ambulances are first quite a bit. Councilor Fowler.
So also the ambulances can go outside the county too. if they're needed. And that happens quite often.
Yeah, it works both ways, but we're only scoring, this only scores, Frontenac. Thought you'd be interested in that. Okay, that takes us to. All right, that takes us to, public forum. Does anyone in the council chamber wish to make a comment on the item we talked about today? Mr. Westmouse?
Thanks, everybody. I just wanted to commend Councillor Hodges' report on the retention on the entrepreneur program. It is really important. Myself, as well as a few other people in the community, have brought forth different ideas for council to think about. My question, it would be just is, would council be prepared to provide some kind of a timeline as to when some of this stuff is brought back? That way, some of the young families and the young people in some of these programs, they know where they stand and they can see a real plan that can help them stay in the area or build a future in the area.
I don't have an answer for that because Frontenac Business Services may already operate this. I don't know if they have one for a young person starting out, but they certainly have programs with businesses that are starting off. They help them, they've got fellows there, the financial, the whole shebang, that they arrange loans and everything else. So I don't know what they've got in our economic development team, but then have to decide what they're going to do and you know, how much of it's worthwhile, give them time to develop it. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Fair enough, thanks.
Hey, is anybody online, Kelly?
If there's anyone online that wishes to speak, please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none.
All right, Ms. Willis? Yeah. No.
This one? Okay, got it. Thank you. So I had a couple of things that I wanted to discuss. I had asked a couple of meetings ago about the official plan and where it was, and was told that it was online. I've looked at other municipalities and the official plans are up to date. When I looked at the one that was online here, it hasn't been changed at all. So it was posted in 2017, but there hasn't been any consolidation. So I'm just wondering how I would actually kind of find out where we are based on the official plan.
It's currently being looked at, and it's good. We've included the 3 dwellings per lot and so on, and that will be completed here, and then we'll go to county.
Okay, so will the actual live update be posted here? Or is it sort of
When it's available, right?
Because that's like 9 years. Next year's when it's
Well,
finished.
it's currently being.
So our official plan is 9 years old. It
Yeah.
is 9 years
Yeah,
old.
so, but it's supposed to be due in 2027, and that's when the next group comes in, committee. So how will they know what's been accomplished at that point in time if all the consolidations not included?
So the only official, we have 2 official plan amendments underway. And those were approved by council at the last meeting, and when county council approves them, if they do, then we will update, put those consolidations in. And it'll look like our zoning bylaws. We have our original with the consolidation. It will be the same.
It'll be
official
on that
plan.
official document and then
Yeah.
posted as updated.
Yeah, so that's what's happening. And then the review is scheduled for 2027. So when we get to that, there'll be open houses and public meetings for that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Terry. The other thing was, I was looking at the procedural policies. I haven't been able to kind of get my head wrapped around how I can actually find them. For instance, a concise publication addressing specific issues, like, for instance, sale of land I haven't been able to kind of find anything available. I've had to go through Karen or to be able to get the actual documents. Is there a posting online or is it available for the public?
So you're looking at the procedural policy for sale of land?
Well, that's just one of them. So there's got to be more of them that kind of, as you go through. So I'm just wondering how I would actually kind of get that instead of always kind of coming to you, because a lot of the times they're posted in the agenda in the minutes. So, there's no actual documentation.
So if under the frequently requested bylaws, you'll see a lot of the bylaws. So the sale of land policy is there. The procedural policy, zoning bylaw, the frequently requested ones. So there's several about the roads. So that's where you would find those documents. But again, if you're looking for them, I would reach out.
Okay. Thank you. One question I had for you, Mr. Mayor, was which do you feel is more added enjoyment value for a homeowner in North Frontenac Township, purchase of shore allowance or the purchase of a road allowance?
They vary from one homeowner to another. I can't make a decision for them. That's why they come forward.
So I'm not asking, and just the whole thing is that the sale price from the township for the purchase of a shore allowance is the same as the road allowance.
That's a policy.
Yeah. So you don't think that the value should maybe be changed? Because I feel as though shore allowance is actually probably going to provide more enjoyment.
There would have to be a council decision to do that.
And how would that be looked at?
It'd be a procedure. We have to come to council as an administrative report, and the council have to consider it and then decide what to do with it.
Okay, and that's brought forward by a council member?
I guess it could be filed through the delegation. Okay, and then council would decide they would accept it. And then if they accept it, then they would decide whether they want to discuss it further or not.
That's okay. The Housing Advisory Task Force. I know that you've looked at presenters recently. One that I might think the Housing Committee might consider is Rick Keller. I know in the area of North Frontenac Township, he is a former owner of Outlook or Lookout Home Hardware, and he's also a renter of his houses or housing in the area. So I just wanted to bring that forward. The other thing is that I know that the Environmental Task Force, or sorry, the Economic Development Task Force, they're looking at the Summerfest. One of the things that they're considering is that there's going to be quite a bit of construction in Plevna this summer. Would they be considering moving the venue for safety?
That would be something the task force could look at. What we discussed.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Fine.
Okay. That brings us to the closed session.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Good. Be it resolved that council retires to closed session at 11:25 a.m. to adopt minutes of a closed meeting held November 27, 2026, and to discuss litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals. Firstly, Ontario Land Tribunal File 25-55, Leptic, 1230D Ostrich Road, and Ontario Land Tribunal File 25-1002, Ampa Palmerston Cottage Cooperative Call 1099B.
Comments? In favor? Carried. We have to clear the council chambers and all electronics are off. Rise report from our closed session in which we adopted the minutes of the closed meeting of February 27th. And we discussed litigation, potential litigation, and including matters before administrative tribunals affecting municipality or local boards, specifically Ontario Land Tribunal File 25-00055 Leptic on Ostrich Road, and Ontario Land Tribunal File 25-001-002 Ampa Palmerston Cottage, a cooperative, and provided direction. All right, so that takes care of item 19, confirmatory bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Good. Be it resolved that bylaw 2026-19, being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of council for its regular meeting held March 20th, 2026, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Adjournment?
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Good. Be it resolved that council adjourns the meeting at 12:16 p.m. until April 10th, 2026, or at the call of the chair.
Comments? In favor? Meeting is adjourned.